I'm the Tree Vice Chief of the Dudley Tribal Council, and I come to you from Climate First Nation. I just would like to acknowledge the chiefs that are here for First Nations. Chief Marcel Head, thank you for coming. Chief Ira MacArthur, thank you, Chief MacArthur. Chief Jeremy Norman, Chief Norma Canada, Chief Blaine Fiddler, Chief Jerry Bernard, and Chief Leon Turbinet. Thank you all for attending today. I know that Chief Bernard comes to us this morning all the way from English River, which is an extra, I would say, 800 kilometers from here. Thanks for coming this afternoon, Chief Jerry.
Come here, I want to sit so close to me. I'm scared.
First, we'll start off with bring us in with some songs from the Treaty 4 series. These singers are from all within the Treaty 4 territory. And let's have them bring this event in a good way. Always. Thank you for those two beautiful songs, Treaty 4 singers. Now I'd like to introduce to you. Well, first of all, I want to tell you when I was asked to MC this media release, that I thought, okay, I do this quite often at home. I do MC at home. But I felt now that I read who's doing all the talking, I feel like I'm doing an all-star game. I do hockey games at home and that day. And have these speakers that are speaking this afternoon, it's like doing an all-star game, honestly. So just start. Blow your tire down a little bit, guys. But it's honestly, it's quite a privilege to be here this afternoon to do this MC of this news release. Thank you to the elders and the drummers this afternoon. Always starting our ceremonies in a good way. And now I'd like to introduce Minister Wilkinson to the podium, please. I got a chair this time. I got a chair.
There you go, buddy.
All right. Well, thank you for the introduction. Thank you to the drummers and singers, and certainly thank you to the elder for the prayer. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional lands referred to as Treaty 4 territory. These are the territories of the Nahaiyawak, the Anishinaabe, the Dakota, the Nakota, and the homeland of the Métis Mischief Nation. For me, these acknowledgements are more than a formality. These words remind me that since time immemorial, Indigenous peoples have been the stewards of the lands and waters in this place, now known as Canada. They are the caretakers, rights holders, and in many cases, title holders to the land on which resource development takes place. I want to start my remarks today to say how wonderful it is to be back in Saskatchewan. As some of you will know, I grew up in Saskatoon. I went to elementary and high school there. I did undergraduate work at the University of Saskatchewan. And then I returned after graduate school to live here in Regina, where I worked for several years for Premier Romano and the government of Saskatchewan as a federal provincial relations advisor and a constitutional advisor. My parents live in Saskatoon. My sister lives here in Regina. I probably should say that my father worked for several years for the Indian Federated College a number of years ago. I say all of this because while I do live now in British Columbia, Saskatchewan has and will always remain a home for me. As we all know, climate change is perhaps the world's most pressing problem. Global temperatures are rising, oceans are warming, sea levels are rising, and extreme weather events are becoming far more frequent. In this day and age, I don't believe that there is any longer any real debate about the reality of climate change, nor about the causes of climate change. The scientific consensus is overwhelming and has been now for many years. I don't think that people in this province are any different from those in other provinces in the acceptance of the scientific fact that the climate is changing and that the most significant cause of those changes are human-produced carbon emissions. I also believe that the vast majority of Canadians in every province and territory understand the reality of what type of world we're going to be leaving to our children if we do not take action to reduce emissions in line with the net zero target of 2050. All of these developments point to an urgent need for responsible stewardship of the planet. But I would say the economics are also equally clear. A net zero world has become a competitive race amongst the world enterprises, investors, and economies, not just to address the environmental challenge that confronts us, but to unlock the immense economic opportunities that can come with a transition to an affordable and low-carbon future. Unlocking this suite of opportunities will provide Canadians with sustainable jobs and long-term economic prosperity while ensuring our domestic industries are ready to lead the world in providing innovative technology, clean energy, and a range of other things. To remain competitive internationally and drive economic growth over the long term, we have to think about the economy in terms of the opportunities, both sectorally and regionally. Certainly, opportunities sectorially will come from new products that enable that lower carbon future. Think about hydrogen, electric vehicles, battery technology, critical minerals, biofuels, and a range of other things. Regionally, each province has a pretty unique mix of their own natural resources. So the economic opportunities that are available to them, and therefore the approaches to a clean energy transition, are going to be different across the country. And I would say that Canada and Saskatchewan are uniquely positioned to take advantage of major areas of growth that are going to be driven through the transition towards a lower carbon future. What we need is a plan that is based on comparative advantage, that aligns the efforts and resources of all levels of government, as well as with the private sector, a plan that respects the rights and engages the interests of Indigenous peoples. That is why we recently launched what we have called the Regional Energy and Resource Tables. The goal of these tables essentially is to provide a platform through which we can engage these conversations about how we can accelerate the development of the opportunities that will create prosperity and jobs and economic opportunity for Canadians that live from coast to coast to coast. As part of this process, we will be seeking the engagement of Indigenous leadership, as well as with key stakeholders, including industry and labor, looking to collaboratively develop economic strategies that are place-based, that reflect the realities of Saskatchewan, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, and Nunavut. Key to achieving our economic and environmental objectives will be technology development and deployment across a range of sectors, and I just wanted to say a couple words about two of those. Certainly, transportation is a key sector where we're going to need to see significant change. Transportation causes about 25% of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. And that means we need to see the deployment of far more in the way of technologies like zero-emission vehicles. This week is Canada Electric Vehicle Week. That means that from coast to coast to coast, we're going to work to raise the benefits associated with moving in the direction of zero-emission vehicles. And over the course of this week, my government will be announcing over 6,000 new EV charging stations as we look to build the infrastructure that will enable people to move in that direction. This will include 50 new EV chargers here in Saskatchewan. Another sector of focus is power generation. Going forward, we need to move towards a clean grid, and we will need to look to generate even more electricity than we have today, given the desire to electrify a range of applications like cars going forward. We will need to replace more and more fossil fuel-generated electricity with clean and renewable energy technologies like wind, hydro, geothermal, and potentially nuclear. And certainly we're going to need significant additional spending on our grid. That is why we have been working to take action in this area. One of the most important tools is what we call the Smart Renewables and Electrification Pathways Program, which is about $1 billion fund to deploy non-emitting technologies, focused on projects that will make clean, affordable electricity more accessible in communities across the country, very much including Indigenous communities. Which brings me to why we are here today. Today I am pleased to announce investments in several renewable energy projects involving Indigenous leadership here in Saskatchewan. 2 projects totaling almost $6 million are being undertaken with the Meadow Lake Tribal Council. The first investment of $4.4 million will build capacity and develop a regional approach to renewable energy, energy efficiency, and conservation capacity. And the second, an investment of $1.6 million, is for an 816 kilowatt solar farm on First Nation lands in the regional municipality of Tecumseh, a project that will be 100% owned by the 9 First Nations of the Meadow Lake Tribal Council and will be located on Indigenous lands. This project is intended to serve as a stepping stone for other renewable energy projects. I'm also pleased to announce investments in more than $3.8 million for 3 other Indigenous-led energy projects here in Saskatchewan. $1 million to the First Nations Power Authority of Saskatchewan for a community energy planning project for Indigenous communities that currently do not have natural gas service from Sask Energy. $2 million to Me Too's Forest Products for a bioheat project that will replace propane heating systems at 2 schools in Pelican Narrows and DeChambeau Lake, thereby reducing fossil fuel use by 90%. And $840,000 to the University of Saskatchewan School of Environmental and Sustainability to create a Master of Sustainability and Energy Security program to help meet the training needs of northern, remote, and Indigenous communities. Together, these 5 investments, totaling nearly $10 million, will support these 5 projects that will advance economic reconciliation, deploy clean energy, and create sustainable jobs. Our partners on these projects are focused on deploying renewable energy, displacing coal-based electricity, and training the next generation of Indigenous clean energy leaders. Both Western science and traditional ecological knowledge are clear. Climate change represents the greatest challenge to our generation and to those generations that are coming. But if we are thoughtful about our response and smart in our investments, it can also be the greatest opportunity of our lifetimes. As we move forward, strategies for climate action and economic prosperity must be inextricably linked. And here they must be inclusive and a driving force behind economic reconciliation in this country. Here in Saskatchewan and across Canada, we need to leverage our inherent strengths and comparative advantages. We need to work together to develop a sustainable, inclusive, and natural resource-driven economy, one that is sustainable, affordable for Canadians, and that provides prosperity for all Canadians. So thank you very much for the invitation to join you today for these important announcements.
Thank you, Minister Wilkinson, for those news that you bring to our territory. Thank you very much for that news. And on behalf of Medley Tribal Council, I'll have Tribal Chief Ben speak on the two projects, the solar project and the capacity building project on behalf of Medley Tribal Council. Chief Ben.
We have to share.
Thank you for that, Vice Chief. First of all, I want to acknowledge our elder here today that started off this beautiful event, this exciting announcements with prayer. It's always a good way to start this day in a good way, so thank you for that, elder. I also want to acknowledge our drummers that did such a great job. I see a lot of young people there, and it just makes my heart happy to see a lot of our young people taking part in our culture. I also want to acknowledge our Vice Chief for emceeing this event. He loves doing it. I really enjoy it, and thank you for calling me a superstar, so all of us here. But with that, good day everybody. Dan said, Lanate. It's an honor for me today to represent the Meadow Lake First Nations that has a population of over 15,000 proud First Nation members. I also would like to acknowledge that we gather here on Treaty 4 territory in the homeland of the Métis. The traditional territory of Meadow Lake Tribal Council First Nation encompasses all of northwest Saskatchewan and into the northeast Alberta, including Treaty 6, 8, and 10. I want to acknowledge and recognize my 9 chiefs, our councillors, our elders, our vice chiefs, and all the people from our communities. I wish to also acknowledge my good friend here, the new Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson, Minister of Natural Resources, my right-hand man since he's sitting right beside me. So today we are gathered to acknowledge and celebrate significant investments by the Government of Canada in clean energy development for the First Nations of Meadow Lake Tribal Council. It is that continued spirit of collaboration. We are excited to grow our capacity in the renewable energy production with participation in the renewable energy economy. Today, the Government of Canada is announcing 2 major investments related to the Meadow Lake Tribal Council. As the Minister mentioned, the first investment is a $4,374,600 to Meadow Lake Tribal Council MLTC program and services for capacity building project to develop regional approach to renewable energy efficient and conservation capacity building that is led by the Indigenous communities for Indigenous communities. The second investment is a $1,604,554 to facilitate the construction of the MLTC solar farms that will produce 860 kilowatts solar farm in southern Saskatchewan on First Nations land. The project will be 100% owned by the 9 First Nations of MLTC and will be a stepping stone for our communities to develop other renewable energy projects. On behalf of the Meadow Lake Tribal Council, I wish to express my deep appreciation to Natural Resource Canada for supporting Indigenous inclusion in the renewable energy sector. These investments in Indigenous communities capacity building and renewable energy asset development are highly valued and promote ongoing reconciliation. So with that, Minister, I would like to thank you all in the Government of Canada, and thank you all for being here and joining us in this exciting event. With that, Minaskaman Mercy Cho, and hope you all have a safe drive home to your own cars. Thank you.
Thank you, Tribal Chief Ben, for those words. Now I'd like to ask CEO of Peter Valentine Group of Companies, as well as the Senior Advisor for the University of Saskatchewan, Mr. Gary Raskin.
Senior Vice Good afternoon, everybody. Very pleased to be here. As introduced, I'm Gary Morosky, CEO of the Peter Valentine Group of Companies. I was just saying in Crete, I'm very happy to see a lot of friends who are visiting for a few minutes. But even a few minutes at a time is very valuable just to touch base and reacquaint ourselves with each other, where life is and where it's going. So thank you for that, and also acknowledge the traditional territory treaty for Homeland and Métis as well. I want to acknowledge my fellow panelists up here, and try not to get this thing to echo too much. There it is, that's better. So, just acknowledge our colleague here at the table. Thank Minister Wilkinson and Natural Resources Canada, Tribal Chief Ben, Guy Lonechild, and then, of course, our MC as well. Our Mike just went dead. Oh, there we go. I want to thank the other chiefs that are here in attendance as well. So first of all, on behalf of the Peter Valentine Group of Companies, and on behalf of the University of Saskatchewan School of Environment, we want to thank Minister Wilkinson and our NRCan team for their hard work and vision to see their way to support projects like this. I'm probably not intentionally speaking for Minister Wilkinson, but I want to thank the NRCan team and staff as well. I know that each one of us really value our team members that work for us behind the scenes, and I certainly want to acknowledge our staff at the Group of Companies and at the School of Environment and Sustainability for all their hard work. It's always exciting to be at an event where renewable energy is talked about, where people are excited to talk about renewable energy and how they think renewable energy is exciting. It can sound like a bit of an echo chamber, but I think and I want to take some of the words from Elder, who mentioned about the impact locally and taking what's local national and our beliefs national. So I wanted to focus a few comments on that. Our communities struggle on a daily basis with energy security. This impacts, access, fair and reasonable access, cost, reliability to our communities, which has huge and broad impacts. It has impacts on home heating. It has impacts on traditional pursuits, whether it's pursuing, traditional activities of hunting, fishing, and traveling. It has a huge impact on the cost of life on a daily basis. Unfortunately, our communities also suffer from a lot of socioeconomic challenges and a high cost of energy, a high cost of food security, which is directly linked to the high cost of energy, affects materially the quality of life of our communities. So in trying to address these issues, many in this room, outside of this room, at the front of this table, we always try to do our best to advance and make better for our communities. But we do come up sometimes against some unique public policy challenges. We'll hear often, you're geographically too marginalized. How do we justify an expense for a small population in a remote area? The demographic company where your population is younger versus the rest of Canada, they're older. Then you have the jurisdictional chaos sometimes that happens. Well, who is responsible for feds or problems? And we work every day to try and address it. Initiatives like this UTUS and the School of Environment projects support the inclusion of Indigenous peoples into the Canadian economy. In fact, it decentralizes portions of it into our communities. And I'll explain a bit about how that works. With our biomass project, we're supporting directly and indirectly our forestry industry as well. We're supporting the mobilization of Indigenous talent in our communities to take on the work and the training to support not only the forestry activities, but the transport and the operation of many of these facilities. They generate pride and are a huge contributor to what we sometimes hear the term circular economy or investing locally. Whatever we call it, it just makes common sense. Is it reinvest and targets investments back into our own community? I, for one, would love to see more projects like this happen as we move forward, and which empowers our community to make a bigger difference for everybody. So with that,
I was hoping I might wouldn't die while they were speaking, because I drove all the way back from that lake and they're here to speak today. All right, thank you very much for that, Gary Verasky. I'd like to invite now a good friend of mine, been on both sides of the table with Guy Longchild, doing a fantastic job with First Nations Power Authority, an innovator, always thinking about economics, how we can make our communities better. A guy that I respect dearly, Guy Longchild.
That's why I like my ice chief. He always pumps my tires. You know? I love that guy. I don't even have to try.
I need somebody like that.
The search for a young girl with
I blow out your tires every day.
and to Chief Marcel Head, who lost a relative, a grandchild, Frank Gunn from Shoal Cree Nation, who was later found near Red Cree Nation, so our hearts are with him. And just for your knowledge, many of the Saskatchewan chiefs back in the day have been sitting back and recognized the loss and contributed to finding young Frank. And so our hearts are with their communities today. On behalf of our fabulous little organization called the First Nations Power Authority, one that Meadow Lake Travel Council and Peter Valentine Nation, Prince Albert Command Council, and others helped to spawn over a decade ago under a discussion we had with Saskatchewan Power Corporation and the Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nations at the time. So I want to thank all of these all-stars that are here. They are actually doing it, just sitting beside the bright shining stars here in education, in politics, in community development. Think of Christine and all of the work that she does with the NLTC. It doesn't go unnoticed. Our people are thriving because of places just like this at the First Nations University of Canada. And it is why we have chosen this as our home. I was talking to Dr. Bob this morning a little bit about the future in terms of what we're doing in community energy planning. And we are hiring local people on the First Nations who are qualified, not even just qualified, but are actually engineers. So I'd like to acknowledge Joshua Thomas, who's a Bachelor of Engineering. Please stand and be acknowledged from the Kinnison First Nation. Graduated from the University of Saskatchewan and will be a full-fledged engineer in 2 months from now. Okay. And is going to be heading up our community energy planning initiative for those First Nations that are who do not have access to natural gas. And in the back, Darlene Brown, please stand and be acknowledged from the Cree Nation. I think we're meeting on some terms today with the system that must be and there are others. The Ira MacArthur, there's waves of ground being accomplished. And of course, Chief Marcel and others that do not have access to natural gas. Why is this important for PM? It is important not to be the organization or the organization itself, but it's to build local capacities, to build knowledge, to build skill sets, to calculate carbon offsets in terms of what our contribution is to protecting Mother Earth. We enjoy it, we see the sun that shines through our records TV here, to acknowledge all of the gifts and the natural resources that we do share. It's about Indigenous-led, it's about ensuring that Indigenous people are at the forefront of fighting climate change. And it's about working through First Nations on a nation-to-nation basis with provincial and territorial and national governments and crown corporations. And so in partnership with Sask Power Corporation, Sask Energy, who are here at that away, we'll be working alongside you, ensuring much needed information as we move forward. Working on demand-side management and energy conservation is an important aspect of protecting Mother Earth, and so we will build that capacity. And so in our short 10.5 years, we celebrated success a couple weeks ago now, our last weekend was last week in Saskatoon. But the sky is the limit. The opportunity amongst all of us to do our part is immense, and we want to thank Natural Resources Canada for all it does. We had this conversation with Sask Power 4 years ago about the top 20 First Nations in Saskatchewan where we do community energy plans. Well, what this does for us today is get us to that 20. So thank you very much in the last couple of years. So really do appreciate all the partnerships that will flourish from this, and we look forward to much exciting educational endeavors through the University of Saskatchewan, our partnership within our county and others. So thanks again on behalf of our board of directors. We really appreciate your friendship and your commitment to Saskatchewan. Thank you.
Vice Chief will try to cut you off. There's a button.
Yeah. Thank you, CEO Lone Child, for those words. Apparently, we're having some sound difficulties here, so we're going to do the media. Questions from the media. But I'm going to ask that our presenters stand up where that red line, where is it going to be? Right there, that yellow or red. There, so the sound is careful out there. And I get it too. The sound is not that great from where they're recording, so we'll ask where the podium is. Did you just want them to sit there and call them individual for the questions? Or did you all want them there at one time?
You got them here?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Wait, what's it mean? It's Richard. We're CBC. Awesome. Yeah.
What?
Tell us what happened and what's it mean to be, the economic reconciliation.
It's really good for us, especially to be a part of the economy. For many years, in the past, we never had a really good chance to be a part of the economy, especially something so dear to our heart as, protecting Mother Earth. As you know, as our ancestors, our elders, they tell us, to continue to take care of Mother Earth and they'll take care of you. And this is a big part of it. There was other many projects we've done with the government of Canada, and it just keeps going, and we're looking forward to more and more projects coming in. And again, I'd like to thank the minister and the government of Canada for being a part of us and having MLTC be a part of this.
Chief Ben, can you explain, it's not just the climate benefits, but also, the affordability, jobs, things like that. Can you explain the spin-off benefits that would come from all of this?
Well, the job opportunities for sure. As you know, on First Nations, there's a lot of poverty we have in our communities right now. So the more businesses we make and opportunities we have for our people and a chance for them, knowing, and also that pride, knowing that this is ours. This is 100% First Nations owned. And it's a pride, it's proud, and it's a big thing for us.
How how many jobs do you foresee all of this creating?
Well, the technical part, that's my CEO of our businesses. Yeah, so I'd have to check with him.
And this could create more green projects down the road besides the solar farm. Do you have any kind of ideas of what you would like to see done?
Well, we sit down with our chiefs. Our chiefs are the one that gives us a direction, what they want to see, and so far they said keep going. It's been a domino effect right now. You know, as you know, we did construct a biomass. I think it's 9.2 megawatts on treaty land in Meadow Lake on Flying Dust First Nation, and with that, it's going to create opportunities for jobs, because even for the tax exemption for our people to come back and be a part of their business. So it's that pride. A lot of our people are talking about they're proud of it.
Minister? Thank you for that, Chief.
Yep. Thank you.
And then just for the minister, we got a time frame, so if we can just get one question, one follow-up. Maybe start on the right here.
Yeah, I guess just kind of building up. What does it mean to be able to kind of make this announcement in your home province?
Well, I'm always happy to come back to Saskatchewan, but I think this is particularly nice in the sense that this is really enabling Indigenous communities to take more control of the energy within their own traditional territories, and of course to push renewable energy, which is something we all across this country need to do as we look to fight climate change, and do so in a way which will promote not only independence but also jobs and economic opportunity.
Anyone else over here? Good? Good? Sorry, is there anybody in the back there?
I think she has a question.
CTV is next up.
What role do you foresee Indigenous communities playing in achieving the country's climate targets by 2050?
Well, Indigenous communities, I think, have a role to play, certainly in terms of helping to reduce emissions with respect to their own emissions within their traditional territories. But I think that more than that, there is an enormous opportunity for Indigenous communities to participate actively in the development of resources that are going to be critical to the energy transition. I think about things like critical minerals, where I think there's an opportunity for enormous numbers of jobs, for procurement opportunities for Indigenous businesses, but also to participate in an equity basis on long-term benefits that will flow to Indigenous communities. They can help us to accelerate the work that needs to be done, but they can also benefit in a way where, you know, traditionally they have not benefited from a lot of the kinds of developments that we have undertaken. And it's time from a social justice perspective, but it's also just time from an economic reconciliation perspective to that change.
I have one more not related to this announcement from another reporter, but some provinces are helping their residents cope with high energy costs by reducing fuel taxes or rebates. Does the federal government have any action plan in this regard? Absolutely.
I mean, we have been taking action on that. Affordability is obviously a big issue. I mean, let's step back and understand that the escalation in the price of oil and gas has been as a result of Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine. And in the aftermath of that, what we did was work with the oil and gas sector to look to increase the amount of oil and gas we produce to help to reduce prices. And we've said by the end of the year we will be producing 300,000 barrels a day more, which will help with respect to affordability. We've also taken action through the last budget in terms of a number of measures to help with affordability for families, particularly for lower income families or people on fixed incomes, including the indexation of things like the Canada Pension Plan and Old Age Security, and a 10% increase in OAS. And we're going to continue to look at that. I mean, at the end of the day, we recognize how important this affordability crunch is for people who are on fixed incomes and for lower income Canadians. We've taken measures, but we are certainly not ruling anything off the table.
Donc, qu'est-ce qui explique votre présence ici? C'est pour annoncer des financements pour des projets avec les communautés autochtones. Donc, qu'est-ce que cela représente pour le gouvernement canadien?
C'est quelque chose qui est très important pour le gouvernement du Canada, de pousser l'agenda de énergie propre. Mais bien sûr, nous devons assurer que les peuples autochtones peuvent participer dans cette situation et aussi d'avoir les travails, mais aussi l'indépendance qui peut venir avec l'énergie propre et les projets énergie propre. Et je suis très fier d'être ici, la province dans laquelle j'ai grandi, avec nos alliés, les peuples autochtones au Saskatchewan, pour faire les annonces.
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres organisations, d'autres communautés avec qui le gouvernement va travailler pour financer d'autres projets de ce genre?
Nous avons une fonds pour soutenir les projets comme le projet qui était annoncé aujourd'hui. Et nous allons travailler avec beaucoup de groupes autochtones, mais aussi avec les communautés de Saskatchewan. Il y a beaucoup de choses qu'on doit faire en Saskatchewan pour éliminer les centrales de charbon, mais aussi d'accélérer l'énergie qu'on doit avoir dans l'avenir, dans laquelle il y a les choses comme les véhicules électriques qui ont besoin de plus d'électricité.
C'est un sujet qui n'est pas lié à ce sujet aujourd'hui. C'est concernant les turbines. Est-ce que le gouvernement va accéder à ces demandes pour la Saskatchewan, la construction des turbines?
Les turbines de l'Ukraine et Russie? Oui, nous avons annoncé que nous allons avoir une exception pour les turbines. C'est quelque chose. C'est un enjeu qui n'est pas simple, bien sûr. Et j'ai discuté discuté ce sujet avec mon homologue de l'Ukraine, mais aussi avec mon homologue de l'Allemagne et la communauté européenne, et bien sûr avec les Américains. Et bien sûr, nous soutenons l'Ukraine dans la guerre contre la Russie. Et nous allons continuer de soutenir. Mais bien sûr, le point les sanctions n'est pas de cause les grands comment est-ce qu'on dit, damage contre nos alliés en Europe. Et bien sûr, nous allons continuer de soutenir l'Ukraine, mais nous avons décidé d'avoir une exception.
Well, now in English, it's for, okay.
I got a call to three, so if I can get
Okay.
So why did you feel it was important to accede to this request?
Obviously, this is a very difficult situation and a very difficult issue. I have spent many hours talking with my counterpart in the Ukraine, my counterparts in Germany and the European Union, and with the Americans on this subject. We continue to support Ukraine. We actually have increased our sanctions over the last couple of days against Russia for their brutal and unjustified invasion of Ukraine. But the point of sanctions was never to cause huge harm to our allies in Europe, the Germans, the Italians, the Austrians, who rely on Nord Stream 1. And so at the end of the day, we have decided to make a time-limited exception to maintain the turbines to ensure that our European friends can continue their support of the Ukrainian war effort. And I think you will see that the Americans have put out a statement in favor of what Canada has done, as have the Europeans. Thank you.